Life is full of surprises you can't predict. That thought came to me that night as I sat alone in the small hotel room with Gary. My husband, Logan, had been away in another city for months now, and the distance had left me anxious and restless. I missed him, of course. But it wasn't just the fact that he wasn't around, it was his indifference that hurt most. His absence wasn't only physical, it was emotional. The lonely nights had started to eat away at me, quietly, piece by piece. Still, I could never have guessed that asking my stepson Gary to drive me to visit my father would lead to the two of us stranded in a hotel room together, a small, cramped room with only one bed. I had no idea what was waiting for us. Let me tell you everything from the beginning. Every small detail. Believe me, the end of this story is far more unexpected than it seems. That morning before leaving the house, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. My reflection looked tense, but I couldn't deny that I still looked good. Even after all those months of neglect, I still felt alive, still felt desirable in a quiet, fragile way. Yet somehow, even those small bursts of confidence no longer felt like enough. In the kitchen, Gary was finishing his breakfast when I called out to him. "You're starting college at the end of summer," I said. "You need more driving practice. Come on, take me to your grandfather's." He turned with that mischievous smile I knew too well. Gary was sweet, funny, a little reckless, always joking. Sometimes too much. "Okay, stepmom," he said, half teasing. "But only on one condition. Tell Dad to get me a better car for the summer." I sighed, hiding a small smirk. "We'll talk," I said, already gathering my things. Inside, though, I was focused on the trip ahead, completely unaware of what it would turn into. We had been driving for about 2 hours. I sat in the back seat scrolling through my phone while Gary hummed along with some random song on the radio, cracking jokes every now and then that made only him laugh. Then suddenly, the car made a strange grinding noise, followed by a loud hiss, and stopped completely. "What's happening?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I think the car just broke down," Gary muttered, pulling it to the side of the road. And there we were, stuck in the middle of nowhere. My phone signal was weak, and there wasn't another car in sight. We spent the next 2 hours arguing, calling every number we could find and trying to get the engine to start again. Nothing worked. Eventually, we had to face reality. The only option was to spend the night at the nearest motel. At the reception desk, while Gary spoke with the clerk, I stood behind him feeling completely drained. If Logan finds out about this, he's going to lose it, I thought. But strangely enough, the thought didn't bother me as much as it should have. A small part of me didn't care anymore. Somehow I knew that this night would change something, even if I didn't yet know what. When we reached the room, I opened the door and froze. The space was tiny, barely big enough for 2 people to turn around in. A single bed, one nightstand, and a flickering light overhead that made everything look older and dimmer than it probably was. The air conditioner wheezed weakly, and the small window looked out over the empty parking lot. "This is it?" I muttered, disappointed. Gary stepped in behind me, chuckling. "What did you expect, a 5-star hotel?" "Relax, stepmom, it's just one night." His tone was teasing, but that familiar grin made something twist inside me. Half irritation, half something else I couldn't name. "This heat is unbearable," I said, rubbing my neck. "I think I need a shower before I melt." "Go ahead," Gary said casually, collapsing onto the bed. "This is your kingdom, Carmen. Make yourself at home." I gave him a look, half amused, half exasperated. He had that same energy his father used to have when we first met. Relaxed, unbothered, full of charm he didn't even seem aware of. I closed the bathroom door behind me and stared into the mirror. My hair clung to my skin, damp from the heat, but I still looked alive. I turned on the shower and let the water run, hoping it would wash away the exhaustion and tension building inside me. I'm 47, I thought. Gary's 22, no longer a kid, about to start college. And here we are, stuck together in this little hotel room for who knows how long. The thought unsettled me, not because of what it meant, but because of how long it had been since I'd felt seen or connected to anyone at all. "Logan," I thought bitterly, "I wanted to surprise you. I wanted to be there with you. But now I'm here and I don't even know what I'm feeling anymore." The steam filled the small bathroom, wrapping around me like fog. For a moment, I just stood there, eyes closed, letting the sound of the water drown out everything else. The silence, the distance, the ache. When I finally stepped out, I felt lighter, calmer. I slipped into a soft, flowy dress, something simple but airy, perfect for the heat. "I'm going downstairs for dinner," I said, peeking out the door. Gary waved without looking up from his phone. "Save me something good." The restaurant downstairs was quiet and warm, the lights soft and golden. I ordered a light meal and a glass of wine, hoping to unwind. Outside, the evening air shimmered under the streetlights, and for the first time in a while, I allowed myself to just breathe. The day hadn't gone the way I expected, but sitting there alone, a calm washed over me. Maybe it wasn't the destination that mattered so much anymore. Maybe what I really needed was exactly this: time to stop, to think, to feel again. And though I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, I could sense something shifting quietly inside me. Not chaos, not recklessness, just change. I couldn't help but let my mind drift back to the small hotel room upstairs. I wondered what Gary was doing. Someone so full of restless energy probably wasn't enjoying being stuck in a space that small. Still, there was something about his easy confidence, his relaxed, unbothered way of existing, that unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. When I finished my wine, I pushed my chair back, left a few bills on the table, and made my way upstairs. My footsteps echoed softly against the old carpeted hallway. The air felt heavier with every step I took, a mix of heat and something I couldn't quite name. When I opened the door, the room was quiet. Too quiet. For a moment, I just stood there, letting my eyes adjust to the dim light. Gary was lying on the bed, freshly showered, his hair still damp and his robe loosely tied. He looked peaceful, calm even. A faint smile played on his lips, and something about that innocence hit me hard. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't expected to feel anything seeing him like that, but there it was, a confusing mix of care, protectiveness, and something else that I didn't want to recognize. For a brief moment, I froze, torn between stepping back out the door and pretending none of this existed. "Carmen, get a grip," I told myself. "He's Logan's son. You're just tired. It's the heat. The long drive. That's all this is." But my thoughts wouldn't settle. The smallness of the room only made everything worse. The single bed sat in the middle of the space like an accusation, and the rickety chair in the corner didn't look like it could survive my weight for a whole night. I sighed quietly, rubbing my temple. I told myself to breathe, to focus on something simple. The hum of the air conditioner. The faint sound of cars outside. Anything but the complicated tangle of emotions tightening in my chest. Finally, I sat down on the edge of the bed. Gary stirred slightly but didn't wake. His breathing was steady, calm, like the sound of waves on a quiet shore. I watched him for a moment longer than I should have, then lay back carefully, keeping as much distance as the narrow bed allowed. Hours passed. I must have drifted off because a soft rustle woke me. I opened my eyes halfway and saw Gary moving, rubbing his face as if half dreaming. For a moment, our eyes almost met, though I wasn't sure if he was awake enough to notice. The tension between us was silent but heavy, hanging in the air like the weight of something unspoken. I closed my eyes again and tried to calm my racing heart. There were no words, only the steady rhythm of breathing, the hum of the night outside, and the soft glow of the flickering ceiling light. And underneath it all, a storm that neither of us knew how to name. I turned my face toward the wall and whispered into the dark, not sure if I was talking to him, to Logan, or to myself. "This night shouldn't mean anything," I murmured. "But I know it will." And in that quiet, stifling hotel room, I understood something I'd been avoiding for a long time. Loneliness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just finds you when you least expect it, wearing a familiar face. It was just the two of us. When he took a step toward me, my breathing quickened. His eyes searched mine, uncertain yet full of awareness. The air between us was charged with something neither of us could name, but both could feel. An invisible pull that wouldn't let us step back. He stopped close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body. His hand brushed my waist, light as air, but the contact sent a shiver through me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Everything inside me screamed that this shouldn't happen, yet at the same time, it felt inevitable, as if all the tension we'd been holding back had finally reached the edge. When he leaned closer, the world seemed to narrow down to that single moment. His gaze dropped to my lips. I didn't move. I couldn't. Every instinct told me to turn away, but my heart refused to listen. The distance between us disappeared, and all the confusion, the loneliness, and the longing seemed to melt into one breath we shared. What followed wasn't wild or rushed. It was slow, careful, and trembling with emotion. It felt like everything unsaid had suddenly found a voice, My hands rested on his shoulders almost without thought, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat under my palms. For that one moment, there was no past, no guilt, only the fragile, burning truth of what we were both feeling. It wasn't just attraction, it was release. Years of restraint, of pretending to be fine, of holding everything together all fell away. It was terrifying, yet it felt achingly human. When I finally leaned back, my thoughts were spinning. The silence that followed was deafening. My dress was still on the floor where I'd dropped it earlier, a quiet reminder of everything that had just happened. Gary's eyes met mine, and there was a storm behind them. Hesitation, disbelief, wonder. He knelt down, picking up the dress carefully, his fingers brushing against the fabric near where my foot had been moments ago. Even that small, innocent touch carried a weight neither of us could ignore. His expression softened, a mix of confusion and certainty, and then he set it aside gently. He sat down beside me, slow and careful, as though he didn't trust the moment not to break. His nearness filled the air again and my chest tightened. I couldn't tell what hurt more, the closeness or the thought of what it meant. Gary brushed his hair back from his forehead, his breathing uneven. The look in his eyes said everything words couldn't. "I'll never forget this hotel," he murmured, his voice trembling slightly. "And I don't think I'll ever want my dad to sell the car again." There was a quiet, aching truth in his words that struck deep. When he finally lay back, eyes closed, I could see how drained he was, emotionally, physically, completely. The night had taken everything out of us. I turned to face the ceiling, unable to sleep, my body still tense, my mind refusing to rest. At some point, exhaustion must have taken over. When morning came, Gary had already gone to fix the car. When he returned, his voice was calm, steady, too steady. "We should pick up Dad," he said. "Then head to the city." The drive was quiet. The wind rushed through the open windows, and the scent of oil and sunlight filled the car. I stared out at the horizon, lost between guilt and something far more complicated, something I didn't dare name. Every glance I stole at Gary only deepened the ache inside me. His face was focused, his jaw set, but I could feel the same unease flickering beneath his calm. I didn't know what would happen after this, if we'd speak about it, or pretend it never happened. But deep down, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This trip had changed everything.